So we had 19 kids there. And it was just we couldn't believe, the turnout was that much. And we've had a really good relationship with the gym that we're at right now. The guy that runs that, his name's Adam Gomez, and he's a like a jujitsu guy, and but he really is excited about sumo and having sumo at his gym. And so basically what it was he told me, he was like, I'll send out an email to all the parents of my jujitsu kids, and we'll see if we can't get them interested in sumo. And so he did, and they just, yeah, we went out and bought we bought two like 20 yard, I think it was 20 yard, um like rolls of like heavy cotton. And we just made, me and my wife, like my wife like cut out mawashis for like all afternoon,
That's
and we're just like
awesome.
making mawashis, and her and I folded them all up and like rolled them. And so we had this big box of mawashis, and the kids would come through the door, and it was it was really cute because we had our adult practice going on like as some of the kids were getting there. And I remember the first kid got there, and he walked in, and his dad, and he's like standing at the edge of the, up against the wall. And I kind of walk over, and I'm like, hi, and introduce myself. And right at that time, like the two of our guys, the Biggs brothers, Nick and Dylan Biggs, they're having a match, and they're just whooping up on each other. I mean, just going at it. And the kid is standing there, and his eyes are like as big as saucers. And he like looks up at his dad, and he's like, Dad, I think I just want to watch today. and, and he thought he was gonna have to go in there and like fight. And his dad was like, no, no, like you're not gonna fight these guys. It's like you're gonna, there's other kids coming. And he was not having it. And then like by the time the other kids started showing up, he was a lot more comfortable because he knew, they were all his buddies and stuff. But all these kids like just start showing up, and like we're just furiously like putting mawashis on them and like sending them over to like start, working out a little bit and getting stretched out. And my friend and Nick Biggs, he's kind of my assistant coach for the youth program. And so we've been trying to work together on that. And it, it was, so yeah, we did basically, they all got ready, and like we put them all through the drills, and we taught them shiko and suriashi, and sliding their feet, and butsukari. And then we just let them have some matches and see what, see how they felt about that. And they did really great. The only way that sumo in the US is going to become as competitive as we can be on the international level is if kids start doing sumo when they're young. With if people start doing sumo when they're young instead of getting into it when they're 25, um if sumo is their primary martial art when they're 10, 11, 12 years old, and they do that up until they're 20, well, now they've already got 10 years of experience. And then when the real competition comes along, they're going to have just that much more of an edge. And we already see stuff like that in Russia and Ukraine, and like they've got kids that are doing sumo. So
Yeah.
we're only shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't start developing, young athletes in this
Are
sport.
you
So
one of the first programs? Because I was trying to think, I was like, unless maybe somewhere out in Los Angeles, like, is there another youth program, or are you kind of the first?
as far as we know, so there's obviously youth programs in Hawaii. Kenna Heffernan and John Jocks have always had, kids in sumo for years. Um, However, on the mainland, to my knowledge, now Tom Zabel told me that there have been some attempts made to get kids into sumo on the mainland, but as far as I know, if we stick with it and it continues on, we'll
Yeah.
be the very first one to really make it happen. I watched sumo when I was a 9-year-old kid on TV, and then I get into sumo 10 years later, and like I'm really wanting to do it, and then I fall out of it for about 7 years, and then I'm back into, back in the game in a way, in a way that I didn't think. And I was just gonna buy a Mawashi and try to go to a few competitions and like see what I could do. And now it's turned into the whole different thing. And it's like, I want to, beyond just like trying to be an athlete, I feel like the best thing I can do, and the best thing that, a lot of us can do, is contribute to the longevity of this sport in the US, And so that's what we're trying to do. And talking to people, John Jocks down in, are you familiar with John?
A little. I know his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so John is like just such a legend. I mean, to me, like he is like one of these. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like when you say like, John, you're a legend. Like, John, you're, you know, um, but like here's a guy who, he just shows up at a sumo competition in Hawaii, you in Honolulu back in the early 70s, and like somebody asks him if he wants to give it a try, and so he does. And then he goes on this, he has this basically like 45-year career of amateur sumo, and then being a coach. He gets invited to train in Japan for 3 months in like the summer of 75 or something like that, at
Something like
Jesse's
that.
stable.
Oh,
Yeah, he got invited to go. He talks about it in the interview that we did on the Ohayo Sumo podcast, but he like basically got an invite to go over there and train for 3 months so that he could go back to Hawaii and kind of teach sumo. And so that's exactly what he did. And you know sent about 20 guys to the professional ranks. Not all of them made it, obviously, but um just incredible. And so now, fast forward, here I am trying to do this thing, and like one of my biggest cheerleaders right now is John Jocks, and he like calls me and we talk on the phone, and like I just like, it's incredible because he's completely, the success of sumo is the most important thing to him. Like, he wants it to be successful, and he wants it, and for whatever reason, he sees something in me that he wants to call and talk to me about it, and give me advice. And so those are the things that you kind of treasure during the whole time, is like, you know, I just want to take what John started and like what these other great people in the sport started, and like do my part, to make it go forward. So that's what we're trying to do. That's the whole mission. And obviously, hopefully someday take that gold medal back from the Russians and the Ukrainians someday.
yes. So right now there's no tournaments for kids in the US anywhere that we
Yeah,
know.
there's none. Yeah.
Okay. So that's something that could be built in the future. That's
Yeah,
really
that's
cool.
that's
Yeah,
something we're definitely planning. I know the gym that we're at, he has said that he would like to, once we have the club established and we know what kids we've got and everything, he wants, like, maybe sometime this summer, he wants to host a kids tournament. He wants to sponsor like a kids tournament at the
Yeah.
gym.
nice.
And so that would be open to anybody, any kids from around the country that wanted to come and compete,
Do
could
like a kids
obviously do that.
camp and then like end with a tournament.
Yeah.
Or I would love to see that. Like just
Yeah.
sumo camps for kids in the summer.
Yeah, you hold like a weekend, have like a whole weekend camp of sumo, and you're
Yeah.
like, you have the kids come in Friday evening, have a session Friday evening, the next day have a morning session on Saturday, and then an evening session on Saturday, and then wrap it all up, like there's a lot of possibilities. And the other thing too, that's is something that John talks about with me, is like having like exchange things where it's like, hey, we're gonna take a group of kids to Hawaii, and we're gonna train with Kenna's kids, and then
Yeah.
like those kids come here, and it's like, so there's a lot of travel opportunities. Like, parents, when you realize that sumo is like international, and like they could make friends all over the world through this sport, and really have a diverse, um yeah, just a diverse knowledge, and that's something that, when I was a kid, my grandma was like a world traveler, and she went all over. I mean, probably like 20 plus different countries in her travels over the years. And one of her favorite places was like Southeast Asia, and uh, and so um, I grew up with a healthy dose of like be curious about other places and be curious about other cultures and learn about things. And so it's a great opportunity for kids to learn about another place, another culture, and then realize that like, oh, this is something that people all over the world do in their own context, in their own place. So I just think it's a really great thing to be able to do that and have that knowledge. So
You've
yeah.
got your whole family in sumo, right? You've got your wife making mawashis and helping
Yeah.
dress people in mawashis. You got kids too?
Yeah, we have 5 kids,
Are
and
they all doing sumo?
yeah. So my oldest daughter is 10, and she does sumo, and then I have twin daughters that are 8, and they do sumo, and then the 2 little ones, Amos is 4, and Herman is about a year and a half, and Herman like Amos is into it too. He's kind of like all over the place, so you have to focus him down.
Mm.
Um, but Herman, since I don't know, since probably like 3 or 4 months ago, I would come home from work. If I like come in the house or like through the door, he gets down in a sumo position to wrestle. And so then if you get down with him and then you say hakioi, he like jumps up and like puts his hands out and like runs at you.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
So
adorable.
yeah, they're all pretty into it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Especially, I mean, it's great for boys, but it's really wonderful to hear that little girls are doing this because
Oh
we're
yeah.
huge. Um, we want women to succeed in everything. And
Yeah.
sumo getting to the Olympics, one of the big hiccups is that women aren't allowed to do sumo. So it's like
Yeah.
we really want to see the encouragement of girls specifically through the amateur levels because Russia, Ukraine, they all have plenty of women doing this and they're very good. Japan,
Oh yeah. That's why people like Eros and Mariah Holmes are so important to the women's side of things because, you know, women have been doing sumo for a long time, uh despite what the popular, myth is that they were, that they weren't allowed for, a long time ago. I mean, you can find pictures of women doing sumo, in the late 19th century, in the 20s. Like they've always been doing sumo in some form or another. Um, but yeah, it's something that I think girls can get as much out of as boys certainly can. So I think yeah, I think it's important, and I think there's a lot of support out there for that to happen, especially in the amateur community. And I want my daughters to, that's I tell Emily all the time. I'm like, all right, you do this now, you start now, by the time you're 18, 19, 20, you could be a top level, female athlete in the US like for sumo. So, that's just something, she's thinking about all kinds of other things as a 10-year-old right now, but hopefully someday, focus in a little more. And that's why John talking about like the exchange stuff, and it's like Ava down in Hawaii that's one of the top. She was like the top junior, and then just does really fabulous sumo and one of the top women's wrestlers in the U.S. It's like people like her. It's like I would love to just send Emlyn down to Hawaii for a week, and it's like go down there and train with their kids, and so those are opportunities that I hope to give a lot of kids, um, for travel and learning about this. So
I think that's awesome. Absolutely awesome what you're doing. I think people may underestimate what it takes just to have a group that practices consistently. Anything you try to
yeah,
do, there's always people that are excited the first week and then they drop off, but you've consistently built an adult program. And so that's exciting. Plus adding the kids into the mix. Um, it shows, like, to me, it's like you've got the tenacity, you've got the willpower to make it happen. And I think we're going to see some amazing youth athletes come out of this in the future.
I hope so. I
We hope
really hope so.
so.
I really hope so. Yeah. And you talk about the consistency, and yeah, like a lot of people come to a sport, or they come to a hobby and they're like, oh, this is really cool, and they'll go after it for a little while, and then it fizzles out at some point. And we've certainly had a handful of people that's been the case, but we really built a really solid core group of guys that just absolutely, I mean, this is just such a big part of their life now, and to the point where it's almost like and for some guys, the club is almost like their support system, like their group of friends, and we try to foster a family, um that it is a family. Like Ohayo Sumo is a family, and my wife doesn't really wrestle, but we made her the Okami-san of our club, and so she takes care of like birthdays, making sure that like everybody, she'll make like a cake or whatever and bring it to practice, and we just things like that, or we and like little gifts, we'll buy guys like a pack of sumo cards or something for just like here, and so we try to make, once you've kind of joined and you're coming consistently, and like you are part of the family, and so that's what she tries to do, and yeah, we just try to take care of everybody and make sure everybody's got what they need so that they can be successful in the ring and do what they love. So
That's awesome.
Your wife sounds amazing.
I know.
I married your wife.
I know. 5 kids. I mean, how is
baking
cake
for everybody's birthday.
I'm so impressed.
Yeah.